Hey everyone, welcome. I see there's a lot of people joining. We have JD Solomon today, and he's going to be presenting a webinar on the 5 aspects of work management that impact maintenance and reliability practitioners. But before we do any of that, get into JD, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you guys have any questions, there's a questions button down to the right below the chat box. You can put your questions in there. Some of them we will probably answer during the webinar, and then some of them we will do at the end. If you just have general comments, things you want to interact with other participants, we want to use just the chat box. So those two things, just keep that in mind. So JD is a longtime friend of UpKeep, friend of mine, great guy, total pro. JD, welcome.
Great to be here. And I'm trying to run. If I've already, have you blown by those? You've blown by these two, right?
Yeah. We're on this one now. Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody listening, bear with us. We're having some issues with Livestorm and JD's PowerPoint. So it's going to be presented in this format as opposed to the normal presenter format. So we apologize for that, but nonetheless, the content is the same. The content is legit, and all of you will get something out of this, I promise. So I'm Brian Bieschi. You guys probably know me. I'm the head of community partnerships for UpKeep. That's enough about me. JD Solomon, give us a little bit about you, brother.
Reliability engineer, been doing it, like they say, over 30 years. Come from a background. My grandfather was a head mechanic. My father was in engineering design, and I've straddled that fence my whole career. So I kind of go in as a consultant. I've been on the owner side as well, and do reliability and maintenance type issues and consultation. So that's my background in short.
We love that. And we love hearing from people who have actually done the work and now they help people do the work. It's always a good fresher breath air, or a breath of fresh air. All right. So everyone's already started telling us where they're at. They know I'm going to ask. Everybody starts in the chat. Tell us where you're coming from. Bucks County, you're right near me. Hagerstown, Maryland. I'm in Maryland. We've got Kentucky. We've got Canada. We've got British Columbia, Jersey, lots of Texas, a lot of Jersey, some California people popping in there, India. We've got a lot of people popping off here, JD. Let's see, Ohio, St. Lucia, Nigeria. Wow. Okay. Manitoba, dang. All right. So we have a lot of good people here, a lot of places. I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen Greg Christensen or Ahmed yet, but they are partners of UpKeep, great dudes. If you haven't checked out CMMS Radio, please do so. All right, JD.
How about experience, Corey? You always have a wide range of experience, and that's how I've kind of tailored this show, right? Anything from 1 year to 35 years, I bet, of experience on the calls.
Oh, yeah. What about experience? Come on, tell us. How long? How long you been in maintenance, reliability, turning the wrenches, or anything? Engineering, management? 20 years, 25, 35, 20 plus, 43, Michael, 6 years. There are a lot of old heads in here. Good thing. Hopefully you guys are all sitting down.
God, that's a young guy talking there, man. So I've geared this thing so everybody gets a little tidbit if you're an old guard like I am. So you'll get some tidbits. Hopefully something you'll help. But I've also given it where we're going to give some foundational stuff too. So if you're just now getting into maintenance and reliability and work management, I think you're going to get some tidbits out of it too. So I've tried to go broad with this, hopefully not too broad, but you'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute. So I'm away, Brian. Start off with this. Used to work with a colleague by the name of Bob Lawrence. He was a planner, and he loved to have the saying, "In God we trust, everyone else bring the data." And you guys have probably heard that. But I believe in that because in work management, as we'll explore today, we have to have data to make good decisions. We also have to have good data to maybe justify getting other positions or additional resources because most organizations tend to short work management. What are most of us trying to do, right? And these are two of my favorite planners, two guys I'm working with right now. But when we talk about it, work management and what we're trying to do, we're trying to get paid for one, right? Everybody likes to get paid. we're trying to be safe because we don't want to go do our work and come back and somebody get hurt or killed or not be able to go home normal. But we want it to be purposeful and fulfilling. We want our work to mean something. We don't want to run around all day long and feel like we're just trying to look for parts. And is that blacking out on you, Brian?
It's just showing a white. Seems like in between each slide, it's showing like a white page. Yeah.
Yeah, it just fades out on me, but we'll work through that. So anyway, one of the things we talk about, and I'll talk about in the business case, for you guys that hadn't been in work management that long, is most organizations are on the wrenches less than 50% of the time. In fact, 35, 45% is what we see in general manufacturing. The rest of the time we spend running around looking for parts and trying to figure out what to do next once we finish our job. And so being able to manage the work means we give everybody more purpose because it's really a steady flow of work and we can do meaningful things instead of sitting around waiting to find parts or drive around. Today I'm going to share 5 things, and this is UpKeep. You guys know it. I want to thank Brian and Ryan Chan for putting this format together. These are the 5 topics we'll discuss today. I can do a all day long workshop or training on every one of these. And today I have about 10 minutes. And so I just ask, as you see things that you want to change or do different or want more information on something, Brian can do a whole webinar, me or somebody else, on each one of these slides.
That's right. And as JD said, this is holistic. This is big picture looking at these things. We'll definitely be bringing more of these individual components to life more in depth. But JD's right. I mean, planning and scheduling is the unlocking key, and you could spend weeks just on planning and scheduling alone.
Yeah. Okay. And I could spend it on trend analysis at the bottom there too. I mean, that's kind of what I do is optimization and whatnot. So, all right. So that's kind of the introduction. Let me move on to 2 foundations, I think, that run through all of my work management work that I do and help that I provide people. And one is criticality analysis. Out of the gate, you guys know at the bottom, what is criticality? A relative measure of the importance to your business. About 10 years ago, a colleague of mine, Jim Oldach, and I kind of created a simplified criticality method. I'm not trying to sell it here. I'm just trying to point out that there's tons of criticality methods, and I'm so passionate about it that me and one of my colleagues created SOAP, peer-reviewed it, published it, and have used it for a decade because it really is where all the work that we do really starts from. So if you haven't done a criticality analysis or you haven't updated it, you need to go ahead and do that regardless of what method you do. The second thing that I like to tell people is apply systems thinking to everything you do. A system, as defined there, a collection of interrelated parts that provides an outcome that the parts cannot provide on their own. And what I see a lot of time in work planning is we get down to the individual component level or equipment level, and you'll never have enough resources to do all of that well. And so while criticality is a part of it, also understanding what your inputs and outputs and how the system should behave is equally important. And that system thinking we'll talk about throughout today's presentation. So let me get into what everybody wants to be here for. And that is to talk about those 5 pieces. And the first thing I'll talk about is planning and scheduling. Now, what I'll do with each of these is I'll walk through them. I'm going to give you a couple insights or observations. Then I'm going to give you some of the common questions I've got in 35 years of practice. Every year, every place I go, I kind of hear these questions as I work with work management issues. And I'll give you those questions and talk a little bit about it. Then I will kind of give you one good tip that I think you can improve your practice with, kind of as a practitioner. So formal definition is on the right for planning and scheduling, and you can read the really long definition. On the left is the simplified. Planning is the what and the how. Scheduling is the when and the who. For you guys that are fairly new, in most of our organizations, you need a dedicated person to plan. In terms of scheduling, usually your supervisors can do a lot of the scheduling, especially inside the week that they're supposed to be managing the resources on. Think about planners doing planning. Think about schedulers kind of managing the traffic, the when and the who, and those usually can be your supervisors without having dedicated schedulers. So why plan? And you'll see this slide in a different way shortly, but 3 big reasons. You demonstrate the need for more people because you usually don't have enough people to get all the work done. Hence, you've got to do criticality and prioritize things. Cover your rear end, right? Somebody's going to ask you, were you planning for this, or just let everything just randomly run to failure? And you've got to be able to do that. And finally, planning is going to save you money. And when we build these business cases, which is this picture for planning, what we normally find is what I alluded to earlier. If you have 2,080 hours in a year, or roughly 2,000 with vacation, a planner can increase your wrench time 10 to 20%. You're saving, 200 hours per person just with a planner. And so it builds a business case for those resources. It also, for organizations that I work with that have planners and doing it well, they all say, don't take my planner away, because if you take my planner away, I'll have to have more people. So we kind of build a business case for that on the front end, and back end, once we use it, we know it to be true. It's in the middle that we sometimes struggle with. How do we justify it?
JD, can I add something?
Yeah, anything, yeah.
So there's an intangible with the association of these things as well, which is business confidence, operational confidence. So by implementing and planning and scheduling, doing these things, you're inherently building trust and all the things you need for symbiosis, but departmental symbiosis, right? So if the organization, the operational organization sees you planning and scheduling, well, then they're going to be interested in that. They're going to start telling you about their schedule so that you can be more optimized and efficient, because it benefits them in the long run. So remember, there's a lot of things, the intangibles, that come out of this as well.
Okay. Have I stopped sharing, Brian, or do you see my screen?
I can see how many planners.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Now it's a white screen.
Yeah. I'm having a little bit of trouble here.
This thing does not like us today. For everybody listening, we spent some good amount of time to try to figure out why Livestorm is not allowing him to do this. But the show must go on.
The show must go on, and let okay. Am I sharing again, Ryan?
It's yep. How many planners? Yep.
Okay, how many planners? I'm not going to stop this time. So what I tell people, this is a common question everywhere I go. If I don't have planners, how many planners do I need? My answer is always at least one. You need at least one in any organization. The rule of thumb that you see most planning experts kicking around is somewhere between 14 to 18 technicians. Technicians can be, one technician could be a 2-person or 3-person crew. It really gets down to how much work is being assigned and to how many people. And so we usually look at it that way. Don't lock in to a fixed number.
Screen went blank again, JD.
Yeah. I think I'm having trouble with the live stream connection is what this is.
You know, for good faith, we had some people in the chat offering some ways to solve these problems.
Well, I'll take any ideas.
They said try slideshow view.
Yeah, I've tried that.
Okay.
Let me see if I can try it here again and see. Can you see my screen now?
Sure, I can see it, but it's still the same. It's in the designer mode.
Oh, okay. Well, see, it's not taking the slideshow view, which is part of my problem here. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Just saying how many planners?
Yes.
Planners do not schedule, order, or kit parts, manage subcontracts, or QC work orders. The real life example I give you here is in this particular case at this site, the client has called the planners maintenance coordinators because the client does want them to help manage subcontracts, capital subcontracts that maintenance does or operations does, and they want them to do more QC work orders. So psychologically, instead of overloading a planner, what they've tried to say is, basically, we're going to have a slightly different name for it. And I like that. I like that different approach.
That's becoming really common, JD. I've seen it at several places I've been in.
Okay. I'm not advancing, am I?
No. What if you just hit the down arrow on your keyboard?
Yeah, that's what I'm hitting. You see my screen now, Brian?
Yeah, I can see it. Amissa, can you check out that thing that Josh just sent in the chat? Full disclosure, we are not IT tech people. We are thoroughbred maintenance people. And sometimes we're just straight up cavemen when it comes to working on stuff. All right, while we're hanging, everybody in the chat, I'm seeing some people talking about where they've experienced maintenance planners or coordinators. Have you guys heard coordinator? I know I have. At the last two places that I was a part of, coordinator was the term. It's because we wanted them to wear several hats, as JD said.
Can you see my screen now, Ryan?
Yeah,
Brian?
I can see it. Yeah, it's the work management upkeep ambassador webinar PowerPoint. Do you have it in like a form, like a PDF or something we can scroll through?
No, I normally do have that. Let's do that real quick, okay?
Jeff had mentioned that he's a coordinator in Wisconsin. So Jeff, do you kit parts? Do you chase contractors around from time to time? Yeah, yep. That's a common one. That's a common one. Everything under the sun. We have another Jeff who also does the same thing in Kentucky. Michael Kerr, maintenance planner not in the budget. That's funny. How do you have a budget if you don't have a maintenance planner? Matthew does the weekly planning. But Matthew, are you working in the current week as a planner or in the future weeks as a planner? Because we want to be in the future weeks as a planner, right? We let the supervisor, he deals with the weekly stuff, that in-week work. Oh, all right, Michael. Yeah, so you're still trying to get one on board. Gotcha. That's right. Yep. So Brandon, a lot of people they do say planner / scheduler. If you have a low capacity, maintenance capacity, meaning less technicians, not a whole lot of stuff going on, that's possible sometimes. When you get into larger organizations, more technicians, that becomes very troublesome for somebody to manage both of those roles. So Jeff is a planner for 50 mechanics. I hope you have a good CMMS, Jeff. That'll help aid a lot of those things, automate a lot of that process.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, you're in sharing. Yeah, this would be perfect. Can you keep that?
Yes, we're going to do this in PDF mode, guys. Sorry for the breakdown there. So how many planners? Everybody see that? You got the 5, 6 guys standing there?
Yep.
We're back going, okay. Thanks for – how many did we lose out of that? We lost probably 10%.
We gained 4.
Oh, wow. Maybe they have respect for us.
They wanted to come on and see you fumble through this. That's maybe what it was.
Yeah, an international webinar. I get fumbled through it. Yeah, I love that. So anyway. All right, guys. So how many planners? We just covered that. Let's talk about another question that I get often in the practice is, how long does it take? How long does it take to get, a kind of a planning, scheduling kind of program going? And I don't ever really answer. I take Robert Earl Keen's song, kind of country folk singer, Robert Earl Keen, the road goes on forever and the journey never ends. I talk about the rule of 5. I've had the pleasure to work with several places. This is in Gwinnett County, Georgia. They actually have 5 planners, and I get to audit them every couple of years, or I did at one point. And it's interesting, just like a normal distribution. 1 planner is great, knocking it out. 3 are adequate, and 1 struggles. You come back 2 years later, the guys that's struggling, he might be gone or he might be adequate, but somebody else is rotated. So it's just a constant thing, just like a business. You're constantly evolving, you're kind of working, and you really never get to that perfect state. You have a process, you have a program, but don't get frustrated as things change and morph over time. It's been my experience anyway. Who should I hire, right? That's a common question. I get that question a lot. Who should I hire? And for the HR people, I say to come to the top 3 things there. And CMRP is Certified Maintenance Reliability Professional, or CMRT, Certified Maintenance Reliability Technician. Y'all probably know that organization that does that. But the thing that I say, and it always proves out, is your best technician, your best craftsperson, your person that knows the work best. And incidentally, if you don't have a real good planning program, work planning, work management, it's probably because that part chokes you. You can't pull that best person off the front line, and you put a secondary person in there, and it really doesn't work, because the planner has got to know the job, the planner's got to know the resources, including the people, and the planner's got to be able to kind of go toe-to-toe in a respectful way with the operations lead and the maintenance supervisors. So you really need, one of your best craft people, your best technicians, kind of being your best planner. So that's just hard for a lot of organizations to do.
Having an integral understanding of the operation helps as well, right? Knowing patterns and machine cycles and how things work and where bottlenecks are, understanding the actual operational capacity is really beneficial as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean by the better set on resources, because resources can be your equipment, but it's also your people and their capabilities too, right? And even your management systems of how you get budget and stuff. Hard to do that from the outside. Hard to just walk in and do that. So my tip, the one tip that I found this 15 or 20 years ago. In my consulting, I usually am more of a consultant. I go in and help fix problems, help upgrade job plans, help upgrade predictive maintenance and preventive maintenance programs. I don't do a lot of just lecturing. And so 10 or 15 years, maybe 20 years ago, we were trying to get people trained, and I just put people at a table, didn't have enough leaders like me to go around. So I said, you guys start working through this on your own, cross-functional team. And they struggled, but it was worth its weight in gold. And so now to teach planning and to have people appreciate the planners, this is the exercise I do, and that is just to do something simple like a valve or a meter or a chemical feed injector and say, let's make the job plan for that. And that exercise is worth $1 million because you get things like, how many steps do I need, right? Experienced people won't only have 6 or 8 steps. Green people won't, the numbers say 28 to 34 steps for somebody totally green. But you have those struggles within the group. How much procurement do you get into? Because procurement slows everything down, right? And how much of that process needs to be in a basic job plan? The time required to do it and the cooperation required to do it. Because in many organizations, I said the planner's just there to plan, let him do the job plans. Well, guess what? Even the greatest planners can't do it by themselves. So I like this, make everybody do a job plan together in small groups. And that's really how I get people to appreciate planning and the difference in planning and scheduling. All right, so let me move to PM, to preventive maintenance. There's the definition. You guys can read it. I'm not going to read it to you. I like to get in everybody's mind as I go into places. Stuff like replacing filters and lubricants, changing belts, greasing parts. That's typical preventive maintenance type duties that we normally would do on a regular basis to kind of frame what it is. The objectives usually are to prevent failures, which kind of build into that, and I'm not going to go into that because I don't have time. But if you're not preventing failures, if the failure modes aren't such that they can be prevented, then you really don't need to be doing preventive maintenance on something. So there's a lot more underneath all that, as many of you know, but it's there to prevent failures. What can be frustrating or beneficial, this is the food industry. I work in food, I work in pharmaceuticals, I work in water, wastewater systems. They always have a certain amount of PM that's required by regulatory compliance, And that can be good or bad, but sometimes you just have to do certain things because the regulations tell you to. And then finally, just the actual visits, whether you call inspections part of the PM or PM's just a visit to do your PM, the bottom line is you're looking for predictable signs of failure. So those are your big 3 objectives for doing PM. Now, the question that I usually get asked a lot about everywhere I go to looking at a work management program is how much should be PM? And sometimes they say, how much should be planned work? And I go, wait a minute, let's stop there for a second. And that's where we suffer. PM is preventive maintenance by the industry terms, but some of your generalists will say, the PM proactive and the PM planned also get shifted around into PM. And so remember that planned corrective maintenance, or CM, is part of planned work. So your PM, your PDM, your planned CM should be part of planned work or proactive work. And in that case, your industry number is about 80%. Call it 70 to 90, but 80% should be planned. Rule of thumb, only 30% should be PM. Now, again, it depends on the industry, the equipment, and so forth. But if you're getting under 20% PM of your total, and these are in hours, these aren't in number of work orders. If you're getting below 20% of your hours, you probably need to scratch your head and say, I might not be doing enough PM hours. If you're getting over 40%, you might want to scratch your head and say, maybe I'm doing too much PM. And many organizations actually do too much PM or try to do too much. Go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
JD, couldn't you use corrective work generated from preventive tasks to drive a lot of that decision making, understanding where resources are going and the outcomes that are being provided from them? It's particularly failure modes.
Your PM should drive. Your PM should be driving what your corrective maintenance should be in a perfect world, right? To the point. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
So that's one question I get a lot of. Another question I get a lot of is how much should CM should be part done with the PM, right? So, and the root of that question is, and I've been on the front line too, so I'd appreciate it. You don't want to create a bunch of work orders. Many organizations takes you an hour to create a work order, open and close it, and go through the process. So what you're really saying is, I'm already there. Let me go ahead and fix it. Let me not open a different CM for it. And I generally understand that, but two pieces against that are sometimes you need your work history, and your work history is lost if you don't create that corrective maintenance work order. And what happens is your CM, if it starts taking an extended length of time, you're breaking into your schedule. So you're losing your history, and your break-in work now has to happen because you've just blown up the schedule by spending 4 hours to do what was a 1 hour PM, so to speak. So the rule of thumb is 30 minutes. I've got a lot of clients that try to do 30 minutes. I'm okay with an hour. Again, it depends on your industry and what works for you. But the point being is it probably shouldn't be over an hour, and you need to understand what should be in, a PM. If you're standing there PMing something, you look over and a hose or belt is needing to be replaced on something else, and you got it in your bag or in your truck, go ahead and do it, right? But you're not going to do something that's not a normal PM activity on that PM, even if it's 30 minutes or an hour.
Hey, JD.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So the work history is lost through new work order creation. So a lot of the modern systems have what we call task fail generation. So if you write a task list in a PM and you fail that task, it will generate a corrective work order automatically to address that task. And that's something that is like kind of a workaround in this scenario. So you can either complete it on that new work order that automatically assigns to yourself, or you can schedule it out because you're not losing that history because of the auto generation.
Very good. And UpKeep will do that, I bet, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay. All right. So who should do the PM? And it could be any of all of these three. The problem I see most of the time is the third-party vendors that do the PM. It doesn't get in the CMMS, or at least it doesn't get tracked against the assets. It gets tracked against just work orders sitting in the system. So you really need to make sure the third-party vendors come in. This was an example where this was actually a city wastewater treatment plant, and this was the little substation. The electrical department for the city thought the wastewater department was doing the PM and inspections. The wastewater thought the electrical was, and after 20 years, the little bullet, I call it a bullet, but it was really just a bolt, a nut, broke off the bus bar and blew through the side of that device right there, because nobody had done anything to the bus bar in 20 years.
Nice.
So that's the risk of third-party vendors, even if they're internal. I like operator-based maintenance to some extent, but the two problems are I can usually teach my mechanics to be operators, but it's hard to teach non-mechanical operators to be good mechanics. So be careful with that. And the culture changes so much. I've been in places we've done operator-based maintenance for a couple of years, and I come back a few years later, and the personalities have changed, and now people don't want operators doing maintenance, or maintenance. People say, I don't want my operator touching something. But bottom line here is any of these three parties can do it. It just needs to be used in the work management system, no matter who does it.
I have a tip for everybody listening with that pertaining to that slide real quick, is if you're using third-party vendors and you're using CMMS, force them to use your CMMS on like a tablet or something. And then we train operators to just be good listeners, feelers, and so they can provide better context to issues as opposed to fooling with them.
Yeah, most of the systems now that I see, and I think UpKeep does too, it's pretty easy to almost those third-party vendors get free licenses to come in and use the system to upload information. So it's not like it used to be where a lot of this access was restricted. You can get those third-party vendors into most CMMS or EMS systems fairly readily now without a lot of upcharges for it. So
we don't upcharge, but yes, you can share a work order with any vendor you want, and they can interact with the system.
Right. Tip for this is work leveling, and that can be controversial, but the little table at the top is just based on criticality. That the theory is the more critical it is, the more things we may do, and certainly the more frequently we may do PMs. The list at the bottom is the different kinds of tasks, and we build the little the PMs out of that. And the punchline here is you look at your craft in that right column in that one screen and the number of hours, and you add this across all your subsystems, and you usually figure out that you're short of people and need more. It may be because you're trying to do too much PM. It may be because you have too few resources. But this leveling really helps you start looking at, where your whole PM program is. And so I hate to use the templates, in a more mature organization, but for a very analytical piece and a high level piece, building these kind of templates and just seeing where your PM hours, how much you've got and when it's happening is very beneficial to right sizing that PM program.
It also helps with your manpower capacity, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, if you think you're doing the right amount of PM, it says I can't have everybody do the PM in January. They got to spread out, or I need 3 more people, or I need a vendor to come in and help me.
There's only so many hours in the day, right?
Yeah.
You only have so many hours that wrenches can be turned.
So let me keep us rolling. We're going to be, I think we'll be all right on time. I know we lost a few minutes, but work documentation. Again, this is what I like to say about work documentation. And you saw this for work management earlier. Need for more people, cover your rear end. But here I added, someone may, and the italics here is may. I get tired of work documentation, people saying we got to put everything in the system because one day somebody may do some trend analysis on it. We'll talk about trend analysis later, but you document the work because somebody may need it, but keep in mind, we usually don't do as much with the data you put in as you think. So that needs to be right sized too, the amount of documentation you're doing. Does everyone need a CMMS? I answered this question at the CMRP conference last year, and I think, Brian, you mentioned Greg Christensen. He has some insights on this on CMMS Radio. And on Communicating with Finesse, our website, Corey Dickens did a great one. Why do we keep making the same mistakes over and over in our business with CMMS systems? But people asked me this a lot 20 years ago. Nowadays, most people see the need. But I will say that I've got some general manufacturing clients with, 20 people. They really don't need a CMMS. I've got a water utility with 5 really craft people. They don't need a CMMS. But for the most part, you need one. And tools like UpKeep that are really made for a lot of the remote entry and the handheld devices and cell phones, those are great to be able to simply use those devices to drop into the CMMS. That's really makes it functional to the masses, and really removes this question as something I hear as much of. But I do hear this from time to time because people put a lot of money in their systems and they wonder, do I even need one to start with?
I always say no to JD, but there's always the point where you get in your business where scalability, you're not going to be able to do it without it.
That's exactly right. It gets the small organizations that are simple, like I mentioned, don't need it, but you get so big, you got to do it, right? Which is best? And you can go to Corey Dickens' article that I just mentioned. It's a great one. Brian may have some too. But even though Brian has a CMMS system, it really depends on the functions and the needs of the organization. And I think most CMMS vendors that I know had rather have you pick what's best for you than try to be everything to everybody. And so I always say do a formal assessment first, but I will tell you that probably most of the messes I clean up on the back end, people did not map out the functions and the needs that they needed on the front end with a formal assessment, and they pay dearly on the back end for not having the system configured or aligned with their needs as much. So
yeah, no doubt. We always say we disqualify as many people as we qualify, JD, because if we disqualify you, it's because we're not the best fit for what you're trying to do. And if we don't align the CMMS with your business and the way you do work, the likelihood of adoption and success is less.
That's right. All right. I like to make a note here, and this is an old power converter, 60 to 20 megahertz hertz converter. down in New Orleans, but very old, very old. But, software is just a small part of work documentation and what it takes. And a lot of times where we fall down on work documentation is that people fail to own the process or own the data, and then things really get sideways. Now, what I used to do this as the tip here in this third piece that I'm giving you, which is work documentation, is do a replacement forecast. And another way to say that is if you don't use the data, if you don't validate it, you don't know how good it is. So you got to do something. And so I do a real simple thing of just look out and look at all my equipment and say, when do I need to renew it? When do I need to replace it? But that forces me to go into the system, the CMMS, and basically say, what's the work history? What's the attributes of the equipment? Help me start forecasting. So this is actually one from Augusta, Georgia. It's a pipe system, but I hope you can read some of that. But, when I work with pipelines, gas companies, water sewer companies on their linear, it's pretty good because it's in GIS. But in this case, when you look at the attributes, in 1996, if you look at about the fifth column, we got 5 brick pipes from 1996, which kind of raises your question, are they still putting in brick pipes in the 1990s? Maybe, but I'm not sure. So that's an indication of maybe the data's gotten a little squirrely. Who's checking it? Who owns the data is the question. There's some PVC from 1884 and 1921. Clearly, I don't know what to do with that because PVC wasn't around then. And then there's some ductile at the bottom from 1921, which it wasn't around in 1921. But in 2016 at the bottom, somebody put in some cast iron that probably wasn't around in 2016 either. So all to say this is documenting the work, whether it's work orders or data attributes as you change things out, somebody's got to be responsible for owning that process over time. And the only way to know if it's good or not is to validate it with something like a replacement forecast where you actually have to use the data. So let me stop there. Brian, any questions before I go into inventory and drawings and the fifth one here?
No, man, you're doing awesome. So glad to hear this.
Chat room looking good?
Chat's going. Amissa, our girl, she's holding down the business. A lot of people are asking questions, and she's holding it down.
Okay. Well, if there's a good one, let a few in if they have them here. Okay. So
Will do.
All right. So maintaining inventory and drawings, and this is part 4 and part 5 of the 5 things I want to give you. So the first couple lines here on the left, most of our systems, CMMS, EAMS, whatever you want to call it, we spend a lot of time getting the first 3 questions of asset management in the system. What do we own? What's condition is it in? And what's it worth? We often spend years and never really get those 3 things in. And then one of the prime purposes of having these systems is to do work management. So your work orders is an equal focus with those top 3 things, which means tracking inventory and working drawings and being really good at that gets pushed off until you really get the system configured and populated and operating properly. It's also complicated by usually record drawings and inventory systems are not kept in the CMMS itself. They're kept in financial systems somewhere or systems of record that an organization may keep in its legal or accounting offices. So they're different systems. Other issues, and I'll say it's a good issue, but most CMMSs now, and I know UpKeep can do this too, can handle these links and putting inventory and integrate with inventory and drawings, but they're really heavy issues for the reasons I just talked about. And so we put them off, and we put them off in the later phases. 2 things that I think probably many of you have seen in recent years that are happening kind of trend-wise, we're pushing more work, capital work, into being done through O&M. And I don't know if that's a shortage of engineering staff that usually handles a lot of the capital program, and we're just kind of pushing it to the operations side, or maybe it's because of the long lead equipment from some of the supply chain issues is it's like we get it started as a capital project, but we just let the O&M side finish it. And so what happens to that drawing? What happens to that leftover inventory after you do a capital project? So that's, I think, something I've seen more in recent years, as well as most organizations are having what I'd call generational labor shortages. So you just don't have the people to take on the integrated inventory management and work drawing management within your organization. So that's kind of some trends that I see. Brian, you got anything to add to that? Do you kind of see the same thing on these two slides?
Yeah, this takes coordination, departmental coordination, and a lot of times the communication is not there, or it gets passed off, and it's not important to people from the engineering design teams to the O&M to the maintenance and reliability teams. My only recommendation to people listening is if you're going through the acquisition of machines, designing machines, try to make sure that there's someone from the maintenance facility or department involved to ensure RAMs, reliability, availability, maintainability, and safety in those conversations, so that some of this stuff can be avoided long-term and create those communication avenues.
I won't give you a one or two questions. I'll just give you common questions that I see. And incidentally, as a consultant, advisor, trusted advisor, I'll go into organizations that have had functioning work management and asset management programs for years, and I'll just ask some of these questions, and I get a lot of stutters. And some of the thing is just what Brian alluded to there, is we don't have people that are accountable. It's cross-functional, so we don't have people that really track this regularly. So what's an asset and what's a part? What's a consumable? What's a non-consumable? What's a tool versus an asset, right? You treat your tools maybe different than you treat your assets that drive a system or an output for the organization, right? How long are you in a mobile warehouse or a storeroom, a mobile storeroom or something like that, or just a temporary storeroom with your inventory? All over the place on the O&M side, we do small system modifications all the time, but how do those record drawings get in the system when most of our O&M staff don't have CAD operators or any way to update that? So they kind of walk around in somebody's pocket or on somebody's handheld device and not in the machine. And one of the things I see a lot, especially with mature organizations, is the electrical one lines just aren't available with equipment. You got to go find the right guy to find them, and that's really dangerous too, by the way, with some of your electrical equipment. So all of this pointing to the need that your inventories and your drawings really need to be tracked and maintained. Systems will do it, but we don't do a good job typically on the work management side of integrating all this together. The tip here for me, this is a really old MCC actual project, but include this, whether your PMs or your inspections are part of your PMs, or you got a separate inspection program for different reasons in your PMs, but it's not hard to add on the inspection form or the work order form as you do these things. The presence of working drawings that are there, have critical spares been identified as people go around? Are there critical spares, older pieces of equipment, or just things that are long lead? And then are the safety instructions available? And that sounds so basic, but so many people are not putting those on those forms. And it can be binary, just yes, no, so that somebody can look back on it and say what percentage of the inspections we have working drawings available or not. To me, that's just a good practice, but I don't see that everywhere as a good practice. And like I say, it's not hard to put on a form, is it, Brian?
No.
If he's there.
Not at all. You can put all these things in tasks and checklists and make pictures, drawings, circle things, point at them. All those things can be done.
Okay. All right. Got about 10 minutes on the official clock, so I'm going to get through this one, and then I've got a few summary slides, and we'll be done. Trend analysis and PM optimization. I put this together. Trend analysis. In most organizations, it is nirvana. And I like these three definitions in Webster's dictionary, what nirvana is. The the final beatitude, you can read that, a place or state of oblivion, or a goal hoped for, but apparently unattainable, in which most organizations collect all this data and have these great work management systems, but they never have the resources to really do the trend analysis and the optimization that they could be benefiting from all the work they've done. The questions I get are who should do it. And again, I teach a lot at the International RAMS conference. This is what a bunch of reliability engineers look like from around the world, or a small collection of them. So reliability engineers, this is what we do for a living, right? Planners, as we've already mentioned, planners are looking at the job plans every day. They're getting report backs on the QC of work orders. They could do some of this trend analysis. Modern times, I'm seeing more business analysts that may be in the C-suite, not in the O&M side, but you can borrow business analysts to help you do business cases or look at past trends to do some of this. And then what I like to tell folks is the younger generations are really good with a lot of the data analytics if you get the right people. Good database skills. Anybody that knows a little bit of statistics and has some good database skills can actually do a lot of this kind of trend analysis if you'll let them do it and have the time to let them do it. But I hear this question a lot: who should do it? Once I got the data, who should actually be doing this massaging and analysis of the data? What should we do? And I will say, like any kind of systems thinking, you start simple and you build complexity. All measures have unintended consequences. So I hate to roll out dashboards and measures and say we're going to start collecting them and we set this false ceiling or floor and then everybody gets measured to it and they start manipulating the data. That's just not helpful to me. Especially when I know management, what they really want, senior management, is dollars per something, not necessarily just stuff that comes out of the work management system. So you're really talking about integrating multiple systems to get the kind of measures that senior management wants. So from a systems thinking standpoint, I like to start with kind of statistical process control, figure out over the course of a year or two as you start this kind of trend analysis as to what the system can really do in its natural state. And then work on how to change the processes without having people feel like they're under the gun from day one. So the grade 8 is what I call the 8 that I give a lot of people, and you've probably already read these as I've been talking. But 8 things you can start with just to start trending and analyzing from the O&M side, and probably the things that you can do, mostly within your CMMS system. If you see the bottom right, my other 7, I've got a top 15. I got the grade 8, which is first, in the top 15. But that gets into more of the reliability numbers of MTTB and MTTR and those type of things. But I just advise don't rush into those because of the unintended consequences. Start tracking and trending what you can do kind of by default in your system. And most systems, including UpKeep, will have pretty readily good availability out of the box to start doing some of these things, or most of these things. Brian, anything you want to add here on this one?
No, I mean, these are good basic metrics to really understand where you are, and a lot of them have to do with one of the biggest wasted resources in maintenance, and that's manpower, right? Knowing the expenses associated with with manpower, where they're going, how many hours are you turning on a work order versus how many hours am I paying you to be on shift during a day, right? So focus on these for sure. You don't want to get into, as JD alluded, you don't want to get into all the mess before you really drill down these basic things first.
I also like to think about, at the end of the day, where we're going, right? When we're doing this analysis, what could be the topic, what could be the possible solutions, kind of begin with the end in mind, so to speak, right? And really what we're talking about is fault management. By looking at the past, we're trying to kind of get a good feel for where future faults will be. And so I remind people when they say, what we do, what do you do with this trend analysis? If I pay you all this money, JD, or I put 3 people working on it, what do we do with it? And so that top little cluster on the right side, the quality parts down to user-friendly interfaces, are all part of fault avoidance. that part of the strategy. And then the bottom ones, and it's mainly redundancy here, but these other three also work, are part of fault tolerance, where you just realize that you're going to let certain things fail and go, and you'll pick them up on the back end because of the way you're managing you're doing your management. So I'd just like to give this reminder, kind of from a systems thinking and an end in mind kind of thing, of don't just grind through the analysis without thinking and being able to tell senior management what you might do with it once you're finished with it. Two things I like to do, and this gets into PM optimization now, which is the title of this slide, is start with the gaps in your PM leveling, but start reviewing, are you seeing failure trends? Are you doing too little PM at the wrong times, or even PDM? Do you need to do more PDM on the predictive side? But there's rules of thumbs out there if you really get into PM optimization to say, if I've gone so long and not seen a failure, maybe I can spread out my interval a little bit more, or maybe I can do something different than just changing the lubrication. So you got to be careful. The two footnotes there are the most critical assets. You got to be careful how optimized you want to make. Can you afford to be on critical assets? So there's some philosophy there that says don't mess with the fives. Just be more OEM and time based on your fours and fives, especially your fives. But then there's also the reverse on the lower criticality, is you can't let everything just run to failure unless it's intentional. So you really need to think about that PM optimization. But this gets you to look at past trends to try to optimize what you're doing on PMs. And on the other extreme, that's the front end. On the back end, root cause analysis. And most organizations don't do enough formal root cause analysis. Bob Latino and Brian Hughes and others and I will get on the soapbox. But root cause analysis is also a great place to start going back and looking at your trends and what's been going on in your systems, and really get this analytics part going, get it going through root cause analysis versus just some guy crunching numbers. Do it through the root cause analysis program. Okay, so I got 2 lessons learned here, Brian, as we come to the end. Anything you want to add on those 5 that I just provided? Or any?
No, I think they're wonderful. I think they're wonderful. And I think, like we mentioned in the beginning, this is just a scratch to all the intricacies that come along.
Yeah. All right, a couple lessons learned, and I'll be quick here. Just remember, we all get frustrated. We're all trying to be accountable. We're all trying to get paid. We're all trying to be fulfilled. But remember, business management is ever changing. And so most managers only stay in their roles every 3 to 5 years. Businesses ebb and flow, capital versus maintenance focus, technology changes, and we're seeing a huge generational changes in our business too. So it's real hard to take work management to this place and have it fixed when a lot of things around us are changing. And I'd just like to remind everybody that we may have a goal, but don't get frustrated. I also remind people that all business is a big experiment, right? Everybody in your business, all your competitors know the same things to do. They know the same steps to take. They're probably trying to reach the same customers. It's really the way we use our resources and that secret sauce we do with our processes that really gives us the edge. And so a lot of what I tell people is don't be afraid to try new things with your work management. We know there's certain good practices, but that may not take you to the top. Be willing to experiment and play with different things. And you probably heard a few things from me today that may be controversial. And I learned by just working with different owners of infrastructure and trying to listen and trying to do creative things with them where it's justified. Find that secret sauce. So as I move forward, getting down to the final minute here officially, 5 topics today. Thank Brian, thank Ryan, everything they do at UpKeep. I'm happy to be part of the ambassador program. If you want to hear more about these things, me or another ambassador will jump in and do any of these topics in the future in more detail. I gave you 5 tips today that match those 5 topics I tried to cover. I've tried to give you something practical today and not too theoretical. So those are your 5 tips. Remind you that I think it all starts with whatever criticality method you use. Start with your criticality. If you take nothing away from the day, get your criticality done, and that makes your work management program flow a lot better. And then finally, don't lose focus on the big picture of inputs and outputs. Think systematically first, and then drill down to your equipment and components. Don't do it the other way. So with that, there I am. Visit my website. There I am with Dion Trost today. He and I on a job site together. He's part of our company, but you see on the left, there's my grandfather and me, a wrecker as a mechanic. There's my dad, the engineer, and there's young JD on a set of pile hammer leads out in the field working on a pile hammer. But visit us at jdsolomonsolutions.com, our little niche company, or my communications not-for-profit, which is communicatingwithfinesse.com. So, Brian, thank you, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, JD. We are forever grateful. There's so many nuggets here, and I just want to echo what you said about the ability to apply things from this webinar, right? You'll learn from many practitioners that have done the work. They want you to be able to take something and do it, not just give you a whole bunch of theory and randomness that you can't do anything with, right? And JD is a testament to that. All the ambassadors, a part of the UpKeep program, are a testament to that. And I think just in closing, we just thank you so much, JD. You're the man. I've looked up to you for a long time. And one word from me is anything you do in maintenance reliability, just try to ensure that you create some form of bigger business alignment, right? If your basic strategy is in alignment with where the business wants and needs to be, it's likely that you'll have outcomes that are favorable for the business. Now, there is a lot to that. That's a big statement, but that's just a nugget for all. But again, JD, thank you. Amissa is the senior marketing manager. She's been in the chat. She literally makes all these things happen. So give Amissa some love as well. And JD, we will see you on the next one, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys.
You're very welcome. Bye, everyone.